All right. Welcome, everyone. We are live. All right, we have folks coming on. Hello, hello. We are going to give a couple minutes just to see if anyone else is jumping on, or for folks to tune in on Facebook. But you are in the right place. We are going to have Chip speak here in a few minutes, and then we're also going to do some question and answer and discussion of some things. So as we continue to get folks on, you can feel free to either submit a question over the chat or hit the raise hand button, and we will unmute you when the time comes. So just keep that in mind, and we'll give it a couple more minutes and see if anyone else is tuning on. Thanks for being here. Thanks for getting that in there. May end up being a little bit of an intimate conversation, but we will. This will also be available online, so folks can see it on Facebook and be able to watch it afterwards. Thanks for being here. I'll give it one more minute, see if anyone else jumps on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And if folks join us along or following along on Facebook, we'll be able to go from there. All right, and we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks again for being here, and to anyone watching online, or if you're going to be tuning in afterwards, thanks for joining us to learn a little bit more about CHIP's campaign and how you can get involved and how you can be a part of it. So without further ado, Chip Coldiron is running for Congress here in Northeast Indiana. Born and raised in Fort Wayne in Wells County, graduate of Norwell High School and Indiana University. Chip is an Army veteran, a former healthcare worker at Parkview here in the region, as well as Bloomington Hospital down in Southern Indiana. And a teacher at Norwell High School currently. And is running for the Democratic nomination here in the district to take on Representative Jim Banks. So with that, I will turn it over to Chip Coldiron. Thanks for being here.
Okay, so like Jared said, welcome. Thanks for joining on. I'm from Fort Wayne, born in Fort Wayne, lived in Fort Wayne until I went down to IU. Graduated from IU with a degree in biology, also a degree in political science. Was all set to go join go into the medical field, and then September 11th happened, decided to join the military. So that's where the military came into play there. 2 deployments to Afghanistan, a total of 30 months there. I was in the infantry. Well, I was doing my undergraduate work, like Jared said, I worked in the healthcare field, so I know what it's like there. I've seen how people get treated with good health insurance, see how people get treated in the hospitals without good health insurance, and see how they're treated without any insurance whatsoever. So I have that experience as well. And then once I was out of the military with my honorable discharge, I went back went to graduate school, got my degree in education, master's degree in education, so that way I can teach. And then for the last 8 years, I've been teaching. The last 5 at Norwell, my school that I graduated from, coincidentally. And that's what I've been doing. This past summer, in July of 2019, kind of is the reason why I decided to join and run for Congress. My son was born with a small hole in his heart. First 3 years of taking him to the doctor, his cardiologist, EKG out-of-pocket cost was only $300. This past summer, when we went to go take him for his annual EKG, those out-of-pocket costs skyrocketed up to $3,000, and it made me starting to think, what's going on here? So I started talking to my coworkers, talking to my neighbors, and they're having the same issues too. High healthcare costs, high premiums, and it's just eating away at people's pocketbooks. So I decided to look into the matter a little bit, see what my representative was doing. Coincidentally, he was having a town hall meeting in July of 2019 as well in Fort Wayne, and a lot of people brought this topic up to him. And basically, he told them it's not really his problem. He wants to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, but there's nothing to replace it with, so it's really just repeal. So there's no real solutions. He's not really trying to find a solution to bringing down healthcare costs. He just wants to go back to where it was before the Affordable Care Act, where only the healthy and the wealthy have insurance. So that doesn't work for me. My family has, not only my son has pre-existing condition now with his hole in his heart, my wife also has pre-existing conditions with Crohn's. So going back to the way it was with before the Affordable Care Act, where you couldn't get insurance if you had pre-existing conditions, also was not going to work for me. So that really kicked me in the butt, wanted me to get things going and see if I can make a difference with the healthcare insurance. So that's the biggest reason why I'm running. Throughout the process, kind of took on some other things as well that I'm interested in, protecting Social Security from being privatized. I realize that the Republican Party is really into that, trying to go down that avenue. So I don't want that to happen, so I'll fight for that. And also taking on labor unions, making sure that those are protected. Republican Party also tries to destroy the labor unions. And over the past 20 years, I've really done a good job of destroying labor unions and taking away the people that attend and pay their dues for that. So, and what we need to realize is that labor unions are important to keep not only working conditions favorable for us, but also wages across the board. So those are some of the things that I'm really interested in if I were to be elected. In addition to that, I'm a science teacher. I know about the environment, can talk to you about the environment, can tell you that the environment is changing. We have climate change. Our current representative completely says that climate change is not happening. So not only, it's not even why is it happening, it's not happening. So if elected, I'd really like to look into not only trying to help the environment, but also make sure that we continue to bring jobs and make the environment and the economy kind of work together. So there's several ideas that I have about that as well. So that's really my platform, why I'm running for Congress, and just trying to be the voice for Northeast Indiana that I think we've been lacking for the last 3 years now. All right, so Mr. Leak, you got any questions for me?
What have you been doing the last month and a half?
Last month and a half, been doing some phone calls, getting signs. Signs are in the mail. I'm going to be getting those out here in the next week, getting them in people's yards. So if you're interested in that, I'll need to get your address. Doing a lot of doing this virtual town hall type stuff, keeping up with social media. Done another radio interview with My Labor Radio, which will be getting published here shortly. I've had several letters in the Journal Gazette get published on my behalf. I've also had an op-ed published in the Journal Gazette. And I've been trying to get other smaller newspapers in the surrounding counties publish letters, my op-eds published there as well. So lots of different projects, hoping to just try to make some noise and get my name out there as best as I can.
Thanks so much. Well, Steve, you are welcome. Any questions you continue to have, either feel free to chat that to us or let us know, and we can continue to have this conversation. We do have a couple questions on hand we can kind of run through if you need some time to think through anything else that you'd like to hear. Got one question over email. It's got a couple sets of things. So it's asking for, it says, in making an informed decision on my district candidate, I've got questions. I haven't seen it answered in my research yet. Could you please explain your positions on women's reproductive rights, immigration in our states, regulations to protect the state's rivers, wetlands, and forests, and decriminalization of marijuana?
All right, so first one I think was women's reproductive rights. For me, I advocate pro-choice. I really believe there's a difference between being pro-choice and pro-abortion. For me and my family, we would probably never have an abortion, but if my wife's health was in danger, then we would have to, have an abortion there. So a lot of the pro-lifers would disagree with that. You got to have the baby regardless. Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to go pro-choice there. I also don't think that I can look at someone who has ever been raped or dealt with incest and just say, I'm sorry, you have to have this baby. So for those reasons, I'm pro-choice. And that's where I stand there on reproductive rights. I know our current representative, he's all about taking money away from Planned Parenthood and very pro-life. And, taking money away from Planned Parenthood, I think, is really the wrong avenue to approach. They're really trying to help people plan their families, and they provide several resources for people to have families when they want to have families. And that's the biggest issue that we have right now, is that families are being started and the children grow up and not necessarily taken care of very well. So that's where I stand there on women's reproductive rights. The next one was in the environment and the rivers.
Yes, that's one of them. Yep.
Okay. All right. So like I said just a few minutes ago, I'm a science teacher. I know that climate change is happening here in Northeast Indiana. A lot of counties have talked to me. When I went and talked to them, they brought up the topic of flooding in their farmland. So that's something that I would really need to look into and really want to help the farmers of Northeast Indiana try to find a solution, because if their soil is too wet and they can't get those the crops in the ground, we're not going to have food, and they're not going to be able to continue their livelihood. So that's near and dear to my heart. I want to find solutions to problems. I don't exactly know how to stop the flooding, but with me and the farmers, we sit down and talk. Hopefully we could figure out some kind of solution. Let's see, I know another one was marijuana, right? Legalization of marijuana.
Okay. Yeah, decriminalization of marijuana, and specifically your position on incarcerating people for possession.
Okay. For that one, I really think that's more of a state issue than it is at the federal level. I believe states have to approach that with their own individual government and their state legislatures and governor there to figure out what they want to do with legalization of marijuana in their states. For me personally, I don't want to see Indiana legalize marijuana. That would be my own personal opinion. But again, I'm not going to overstep my bounds and try to take away some kind of power from the state. Each state has to make that decision for their own. I've looked into research for marijuana, and I can tell you that there is a lot more dangerous chemicals in marijuana than you really think. I know there's dangerous chemicals in anything you smoke, but marijuana as well. Now, there's some clinical things you can get out of it, and I would be in favor of doctors prescribing stuff for Marinol and things like that for glaucoma. But again, that's just for the doctors prescribing it, not for legalizing it for everyone across the board. So that's my own personal opinion. But again, that's got to be a states' right issue there. And then what was the last question, Jared?
Your position on immigration.
Immigration. We need immigration. We need people to keep coming into our country. But again, we need to make sure it's a legal immigration. So, I do support legal immigration. I don't agree with building a wall. I'll tell you that. Building walls do nothing. They can go right under the wall or over the wall, through the wall. And most of our immigration actually comes from people flying into our country. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's where a lot of the illegal immigration comes from, people overstaying their visas. But we need immigration into our country in order to continue to get new ideas. And that's what our country is all about. It's just, unless you're a Native American, you, at some point, your family immigrated to our country, and you've been able to contribute something positive to our country. And so it has to keep happening. We can't just shut it down and say no more immigrants whatsoever. If that happens, our creative juices would start to decrease, I think, and we'd all just be, looking at each other with the same ideas. So immigration, I'm all in favor of it, but it has to be legal. It needs to be legal in order to be successful.
Great. Thanks so much, Chip. Steve, let us stop us at any point if there's anything in particular that you'd like to hear about. But I think one of the other things that's and top of mind for a lot of folks is, we are, having this town hall virtually instead of in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Congress is currently working on a follow-up measure to their previous stimulus package. And I think a lot of folks are wondering, what's going to be in that package? Is it going to include another more stimulus payments to folks, any continued unemployment relief, or what kind of support it'll be giving to communities and hospitals on the public health side. So if you were elected to Congress and you were part of the group of folks working on this bill, what would your priorities be in the next set of stimulus coming out of Congress on COVID-19?
Yeah, the first thing that I would make sure that's in that bill is that we have enough testing and the ability to contact trace people that do get infected. Until we get a vaccine, it doesn't matter, what the governor or what the president wants to say as far as lifting our restrictions. Everyone is still at risk. And we like to play off the fact that it's just the older generation that's at risk, and they are, but anyone can catch this. I was reading earlier about, I believe it was a 5-month-old little child dying from COVID. So we need more tests. We need more protective equipment. We need more abilities from hospitals to contact, trace, make sure that people that need to isolate actually do. So that would be the first thing that has to go in that bill. Money to go towards hospitals, and not only the hospitals for the public, but also hospitals for the VA. There's a lot of veterans that are getting sick because the veteran hospitals, they're running out of protective equipment just as much as the other ones, but they're not able to really acquire the protective equipment that they need. So money going to hospitals would be the first thing that I think that needs to get in that bill. We also need to make sure that our state governments have enough money to continue doing what they need to do. The last thing we need right now is state governments to start to going bankrupt. So whatever money we can find to kind of push towards state governments, so that way state governments continue to function that they need to do, that needs to go in that bill as well. Lastly, besides just putting money in bills, I think your Congress needs to continue to reach out to the constituents that they represent and find out what they really need on the ground level, so to speak. So that might not be able to be something you can put into a bill, but it's something that Congressman needs to think about, reaching out to the everyday constituents, not just the large business owners that you may represent in your particular district.
Great, thank you so much. Again, we are streaming live on Facebook. If anyone is watching on Facebook and has a question, feel free to comment on the video, and we'll get to that as well. Otherwise, we'll continue with some of the questions we've got. So along the same lines as the previous question on COVID-19, Representative Jim Banks, who you are hoping to seek the nomination to run against, he's been spending the last several weeks promoting the notion that in order to pay for some of this response, the U.S. should seek reparations from China. What are your reactions to this? Is that a position you share?
Yeah, I think this is the wrong approach to take. I know that supposedly the virus started in China. I understand that. But anytime we're trying to, what it is it's make China pay, all right, is really what his slogan's all about. And anytime you're trying to make another country pay another country, things aren't going to work out well for you. Right now, instead of trying to make another country pay for reparations for this particular disease, it's really a time that we need to come together with all of our scientists throughout the globe and find a solution. If we just start to saddle or saber rattle China, they're just going to close us off and start to go on their own way. And if they happen to have a cure, then they might not be able to share that with us. So China might be an enemy. I understand that, but the old expression is keep your friends close and your enemies closer, I think, is the way to go with this particular instance, instead of trying to make them pay for anything that we deem them responsible for.
Great. So we'll go with one more policy-related question, and then go a little bit more into this district specifically. But so a lot of folks are, feeling that our politics in DC is broken, whether it be money in politics or gridlock in Congress, that they believe their voices are no longer heard by this system. What do you believe is the cause of that, and what would you do to combat that if you were elected to Congress?
Yeah, if I'm elected to Congress, what I would concentrate my efforts on is really getting to know the constituents and what they need. I've read several articles where most congressmen, they spend majority of their days doing fundraisers and trying to collect money for their next campaign bid instead of actually getting any work done. So if I were elected to Congress, I wouldn't put it nearly as much effort into fundraising. If I'm only elected for 2 years, I'm going to make it the best 2 years that I can, where I can ask questions from the constituents and actually be their voice. I'm not in this to make it a career. I'm not a career politician. I'm a career public servant. And if I can only get elected for 2 years, I'm going to make it the best 2 years where I can serve and actually get the problem solved. And that's only going to happen by talking to people and not worrying about what your next campaign finance account is going to be about. So got to focus on what the real needs are and not so much about winning your next campaign.
Thanks so much. Okay, so then moving on to this district specifically, the third district is heavily Republican and has been for quite a while. A lot of folks were kind of excited about the chance in 2018 to make some progress there, and we did, but still fell short. If Democrats to win, they're likely going to need to win over quite a few Republicans in this district. What has been your approach on this campaign to reaching out to Republicans or voters that don't typically participate in the process and trying to bring them into your campaign?
Yeah, so the last time a Democrat represented the third district, or at least the area that's formerly known as different districts, because districting has changed a little bit, was Joe Long back in 1995. So many of her Republican contemporaries at the time would say that she was even more conservative than they were. So the key to winning as a Democrat in Northeast Indiana is making sure that you actually know what the constituents needs. I'm from Wells County. I've been in Northeast Indiana my whole life, except for a few years in the military. So I have several Republican friends. I know what our values are here. I sit slightly left to center. That's why I call myself a Democrat, but I'm a moderate Democrat, and I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between a moderate Democrat and a moderate Republican. So just got to sit down and talk to individuals and let them know that you're just like one of them. Okay. As far as how you accomplish that, that's going door to door. Well, unfortunately, that kind of got cut short, but you can still make phone calls. That's what I've been doing. And every time we get to have a conversation, it's about, what's important to you. How can I make your life better if I am elected? So every person I get to talk to, that's really what the theme is all about. How can I help you? And that's what being a congressman and being a public servant is all about. It's about putting people above your needs and actually being a servant, putting them before your own personal ambitions. So that's how I think I can approach that and what my goal has been.
Okay, thank you so much. Along those lines, what are some of the things that you hear the most about on the campaign trail, the issues that folks in this district care the most about, and what would your priority be, and how would you like to see the representative from this district respond to that?
Yeah, number one thing when I'm knocking on doors, it is healthcare costs. My healthcare costs are out of control. And I respond to them, well, that's exactly why I'm running. And, I have the healthcare costs myself, and I have insurance from the school. So, and then we sit down and we talk about why healthcare costs are out of control and things, different solutions that I think I could bring to the table. So it's definitely healthcare, and I give them my honest opinion about why it is, and in particular why the Affordable Care Act is not working so well is the fact that it's never really given its a chance. Ever since it was brought into legislation, it's been attacked by the Republican Party, especially our current representative. And when I tell them that, they just kind of get awestruck. They don't understand. They don't realize that their current representative is really fighting against them to have affordable health care. So that's how I approach that, and that's their number one issue. And then once we get done talking about that, it's just like, well, okay, glad you told me about that. Also, Northeast Indiana, people are worried about. They're really concerned about schools, and I talked to them about how my career as a teacher has benefited me. Right now we're in this COVID lockdown. No one's really brought it up on the campaign trail, but internet access really needs to be something that we look at. Today I was trying to get in a meeting myself for school, and I kept getting knocked off. So imagine if you're a household with 3 or 4 school-age children. One thing that really needs to be brought up is trying to make internet a universal utility that's available to everyone. So that's something that needs to be brought up in Congress as well.
Thank you so much. We've got a few more questions, just a couple that we can keep on hitting on. Again, if anyone is watching on Facebook and has a question, there's still a little bit of time to submit that, or Steve, feel free to stop us if there's anything you would like to hear specifically from Chip as well. But with that, kind of a broader ideology question, Democrats just finished up nationally a long and bitter, sometimes primary that was oftentimes at least portrayed as a battle between a more moderate wing and establishment wing of the party and a younger, more diverse, more progressive wing of the party. So kind of two questions there. One, where do you see yourself on that spectrum, as well as, what is your priority for making sure that Democrats in the 3rd District are coming together and uniting ahead of the election in November?
Yeah, so I would say, just like I said previously, I'm just left to center. I'm a gun owner myself. That's one thing that, I'm a little bit of conservative, but, I do believe that there needs to be 100% background checks for gun laws. I'm pro-choice. That puts me a little, left to the center compared to people here in Northeast Indiana. As far as the presidential campaign and getting behind Joe Biden, I think a lot of the fact is that people just aren't used to the idea or ready for the idea of socialized medicine yet. I don't think 20 out of 20 odd industrialized countries, we are the only country without socialized medicine. So I think it is coming down the road, but I just don't think that for whatever reason our country is ready for it. Which goes back to the fact that, I want to try to fix the Affordable Care Act. But if fixing the Affordable Care Act doesn't bring down the healthcare costs whatsoever, I am totally up to the option of going down that route for socialized medicine for our country. So I'm just trying to find solutions. I don't think everyone is comfortable with saying that they want to have socialized medicine. But if you look at throughout the rest of the world, what everyone else is doing, and part of the reason why they're having so much more success at conquering this COVID pandemic is the fact that they do have socialized medicine, and our healthcare system is so fragmented right now that we have issues just getting ventilators or protective equipment from one side of the country to the other. So I think it's coming, but I just don't think people are ready for it to say that we are going to be doing socialized medicine. We have a real stigma about that word socialism here in the United States, and it's not always a dirty word. Social Security, it's part of socialism, but who's going to turn their back on getting that Social Security check when they turn 65 or 70 or whenever they want to start cashing that in? No one is, right? So we do have socialistic principles here in our country. We just don't want to admit to that fact yet. So I do, I have conservative values, but I also have some liberal values, and I'm not afraid to try to find solutions, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just here to try to make our community better in the long run.
Hey, Chip, when it comes to fixing the ACA, what's your position on the public option? Is that one of the things you think would fix it?
Yeah, I've read about the public option, and I'm worried about it because I think it could work, but there's also a chance for it to kind of blow up. It just seems like a couple articles that I've read is that if we don't go all one way or all the other, it's kind of like in football where you're a running team or you're a passing team. It's kind of hard to have that mixture. So if we're going to go socialized medicine, I think we need to go that route. If we're going to try to fix the Affordable Care Act, then I think we need to go that route as well. So look each one individually, I think, right now. And then if fixing the Affordable Care Act doesn't work, then go to that socialized medicine route. So that's what my research has told me, that going just halfway, I don't know if that really get the intended effects that we want. What's your opinion, Steve?
Depends how it's written, just like anything else.
What's that?
It would depend on how it's written into the law.
Depend on how it's written. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Steve. getting a little bit to this primary specifically. So June 2nd, the Democrats in the 3rd District have a choice to make. So kind of one, why are you the best candidate to run against Jim Banks in the fall? And you know, what about your campaign makes you the best candidate to run compared to your competitors in the Democratic Party?
Looks like we lost him.
Yeah, it looks like
Chip, you might have froze up. The joys of virtual campaigning. We will try to get him back as soon as we can. Oh, and there he goes. Well, in the meantime, Steve, is there anything else we can make sure we get queued up to talk about before we close here in just a few minutes?
No, I was really more here just as a show of support. So.
Oh, great! Thanks so much.
And to see who
Thanks
else
for
was.
being here.
How did the other? You'd had one a month or so ago, or a couple 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't make that one. How did that one go?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. It went pretty well. We had a good showing. I know, I think Dylan might be able to speak a little bit more to what we've seen since then, but I know some folks have been tuning in afterwards as well. So hopefully folks will have the chance to view this one afterwards too.
Yeah, because we posted the video on Chip's Facebook, or it's on his Facebook page still, and you can also see it on his website. I believe there's a pretty easy link to get to it. So it lasted about an hour and 15 minutes, I believe, and had quite a few questions come in from email ahead of time as well as during the meeting. So it went pretty well.
Good time to note to anyone either watching on Facebook now or who's going to be watching later while we get Chip back. If you want to learn a little bit more about Chip's campaign, you can go to Coldiron for Congress. That's COLDIRON. The number 4, congress.com, to find out more about him and how to get involved, whether that is volunteering or donating. We will be certainly needing some more support down the stretch of this primary, helping to reach out to folks and voters in the last couple weeks before voting in the final voting on June 2nd for the primary, but also early voting, I believe, has already started, if I'm correct, and at least the mail-in process has. So if folks are have any questions about that, indianavoters.com, I believe, is the correct website, would be the best place to find some information about there. So make sure that you were registered, getting a mail-in ballot if you're not feeling up for going out in person here. The Allen County or your local county parties are going to be the ones, and election divisions are going to be the ones that will have information on early voting that you can find. And we'll also be pushing some of that out on our social media. So you can follow along on Facebook, on Twitter, to find out some information about that, to make sure that you have all the resources you need to vote. And the biggest things you can do to support this campaign at the moment, first and foremost, is sharing, whether it's this video, the website, our social media with friends and family as you have them, or with your funding, so we can have some of the resources we need to spread the word, which you can donate through ActBlue online at Chip's website as well. And it looks like we got Chip back. Welcome.
Right. So like I was saying, right, rural internet.
Yeah.
Make that a utility that all of us can have here. So what have I missed? Where are we at?
Great. So I think one of the questions we're going to continue with is, the Democrats have a decision to make on June 2nd for the primary for who they're going to put forward to run against Jim Banks in the fall. So why are you, as opposed to your other competitors in the Democratic primary, the best position to run against Jim Banks? And what about your campaign is best prepared to mount that run?
All right, so yeah, there's three other people running for the primary here. The reason why I think I'm the best candidate out of all four, I do have healthcare experience, I do have education experience, I do have military experience, and all three of these issues are really important to people of Northeast Indiana, but also people throughout the country. When people want to say, boots on the ground, and that's what Congress has to vote for, they've actually been my boots on the ground, so I know what that entails. We worry about paying for our health insurance and things like that. I've seen how that works. So I have some information, have some insight as to how we can make that situation better. And lastly, we all want our kids to have better educations than we have, and they are the future. So if we're going to continue to progress as a society, we have to know what the school system is like on the inside, and I have that experience as well. To the best of my knowledge, if I am elected, I would be the only member of Congress to have those three real life experiences. Some have one or two, but I would have all three of those key pillars to help write and vote on legislation that could be potentially passed to help make our society better. One other point I like to make here is that we've talked about Northeast Indiana being a conservative area, and if we want to actually beat the Republicans in a head-to-head race, we need to have someone who is slightly conservative as well, that can actually talk to voters and actually get people to vote for them. It's okay to be whatever you want to be on the political spectrum. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but if we really want to have a chance at winning this race here in November against Jim Banks, I really think that I have the ability to talk to Republicans who are going to vote and convince them to vote for me. There's no way you can win this race with only Democratic voters. We don't live in California. We don't live in New York City, where Democrats reign supreme there. You have to have Republicans to vote for you. And I really believe that I can convince Republicans to vote for me that are in the middle.
Okay, thanks so much. And then before we get into any closing thoughts or questions, you've got Chip. Then, how can folks get involved? There's just while we were getting you back, sharing some information about your website and social media, but what can folks do to help your campaign, and if they want to support you and your run ahead of the primary, what's the best way for them to do so?
All right, best way to reach out to me is to visit our website, coldironforcongress.com. It's the number 4 there, and send me an email. Tell me how you'd like to get involved with our campaign, and tell me basically what you want to do. There's you can send me your email link, send me when you're available that you want me to call you back or email you, and we'll figure out how to actually get you involved. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's the place where you're going to work at. I'm not going to ask you to do something that you're not comfortable doing. So yeah, visit our website, coldironforcongress.com. Here in the next few days, I'm going to be starting to deliver signs. I could use people to help deliver signs with me. Whenever we do get to be able to knock on doors, I could use help with that. If we don't go that route, then we might need some help with people mailing stuff throughout the mail. So anything you're comfortable with, just send us an email, coldironforcongress.com, and we'll get you set up with being able to help out with the campaign.
Great. Thanks so much. Well, if there's no other questions and nothing coming in on Facebook, I think we will leave it then, Chip, to any closing thoughts or messages that you'd like to share with folks as we close.
Yeah, I just want to point out that thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I really believe that this 2020 election is going to be one of the most important elections in our lifetime. So we see it now with COVID cases throughout the country. We need leadership that's going to get results. We don't need lies. We don't need leadership that's going to lead us down to disaster and ruin. If we really want to get back and be that shining city on the hill, so to speak, that I wrote about in my op-ed. We need leaders who are going to work with people in their district and actually solve problems. I'm not about trying to boast and put my face on different news stations and things like that. I'm about solving problems. That's what I've been about my whole life. That's why I would join the military. That's why I became a teacher. It's about solving problems, and I want to help solve problems for our community. So please vote for Coldiron on June 2nd, and then hopefully on in November in the general election. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chip.